This podcast is proudly brought to you by Term Plus. What I like about Term Plus is its easy to use online platform, giving you access to high-yield term-based accounts, providing consistent monthly income. Owned and operated by Pengana, an ASX-listed company with 23 years of experience, Term Plus is democratizing access to global private credit markets. Visit termplus.com.au to learn more and read the PDS before investing. I'm proud to say that this Rask podcast episode is brought to you by PIMCO, one of the world's leading fixed income investment managers. With more than 50 years of experience in navigating complex global markets, trillions of dollars under management, and a global team of experts, PIMCO is a name trusted by investors worldwide. Discover how PIMCO can help you build a more resilient portfolio at pimco.com/au.
Welcome back to the Australian Retirement Podcast. I'm here once again with Justin Bott from Services Australia. Mate, lovely to have you back on the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me back. It's great to be here.
Now, we've already done recently a podcast about age pension, getting really deep about how it works, assets tests, income tests, the amounts that you may receive, and I'm certain that that's going to be really, really well received. But I wanted to go a little bit deeper with this particular podcast to look past some of the fundamental elements of age pension and talk more to the things that you can do to, as much as possible, boost your eligibility for age pension, as well as avoiding some of the traps that people can find themselves in where perhaps they were eligible but didn't realise and so on.
Yep, for sure.
So we're going to jump straight into this. Now, I'd like to canvass this by saying that when it comes to people's eligibility for age pension, I'm often blown away at how big a difference being entitled to age pension is. And I say that not too long ago, I did a podcast episode that was talking specifically about how to retire when you don't have $1 million. So much of our bloody content focuses around having, well, it's simple. You just use your first million for these sorts of things. And that's not practically what the lives of most Australians. And so if you haven't seen that podcast already, that is, we'll add just the link in the show notes. That was really focused on, what if I don't have enough money to retire? How would I make it? And what would that look like? And one of the things that was really striking when you do that modeling around what retirement might look like for someone who has $100,000 of net assets rather than the ideal 700,000 is that a huge amount of their standard of living is propped up with the age pension.
Yeah.
And that is even true of someone who has, like, for example, a couple, who have 400,000 in super and are in what we would describe as a reasonably comfortable situation. Centrelink age pension can do an enormous amount of the heavy lifting of changing their lifestyle from being one of real frugality to saying, well, no, we can still afford to do some of the things that we want to do and play our golf and go fishing and whatever, do occasional travel and all those other things that retirees want to do more of.
Yeah. So again, the age pension's that safety net to make sure that people have that ongoing income. And with the way that the income test and the asset test works, you can own quite a significant amount and still have some pension eligibility. It might not be very much, but it's still going to be there. One of the things, though, the concern, as we talked about in the first episode, is trying to create more of an eligibility for the purpose of creating more of an eligibility. Rather than, again, when we talked about gifting last time, we talked about the ability, I've got the need, I've got the money, there's somebody with a need, I'm doing it to help a person with a need, rather than I'm doing it just to get more pension, because the logic behind that doesn't necessarily hold. And the same sort of thing applies with, yes, the pension is there. It's a guaranteed income for those that are eligible for it, and it can be. And for some people who never have an opportunity to build wealth at all, it's their life. I mean, this is their source of income, and that's what it's for. But the more that I have, it's not even necessarily about generating more income. It's about choices and options. The more resources I have, the more holidays I can have. When we talked about retirement being 20 plus years, I'm going to need a new car in that period of time. I'm going to need new white goods. I'm going to need potentially work on the house, whatever it might be. Having resources allows me to do that. Not having resources because I tried to use them to get more of an age pension really restricts that. And we don't want people to necessarily restrict their capacity to enjoy everything that retirement might have, just solely they can get a couple of dollars more pension than they might have got otherwise. So it's about, again, perspective, having the pension in perspective, having the total retirement goal in perspective to enjoy everything that retirement has to offer. Yeah.
Agreed. Let's launch in. Let's
Sure.
talk specifically about, the first cab we've got off the rank here is the idea of maximizing funds in exempt assets. And in the previous episode, we talked in some detail about income and assets test and the way that that works. Can we please speak momentarily about exempt assets and why this can be really important for an age pension recipient?
Sure. So an exempt asset under the title is assets we don't look at. And the number one thing you're going to be thinking of, and we've already mentioned in the first episode, the family home and the surrounding 2 hectares are an exempt asset for Services Australia for most people. I'll just quickly say the only reason it's not exempt for some people is if they actually are using it to generate an income. So potentially a bed and breakfast or operating a business out of it or renting some area of the family home out. Again, we talked about the financial information service. If at any point you're thinking of using some of your home, now the kids aren't there, I've got an entire floor that I haven't used, and the only thing I'm using it for is to vacuum it, and that's it. Maybe I can use it to generate some income. If you're ever thinking those sorts of thoughts, it can absolutely work, but you've got to make sure the numbers are right. Again, make an appointment with the Financial Information Service by ringing 132300.
Still need a jingle, mate.
Free information that could just talk through the implications so you understand what you're getting yourself into. But for the majority of people, the family home is an exempt asset. There are a couple of other ones, before we talk about the other big one that a lot of people talk about. First one is a lot of people don't think about, and again, it's because a lot of people don't want to think about, it's funeral bonds or a fully prepaid funeral. Now, a funeral bond is where you're actually putting money aside that in effect is investing through a funeral home to be used to help cover the cost of your funeral in the future. Now, there's an amount that you can put into those, and forgive me, I don't have the actual figure in the top of my head right now, but there's an amount that you can put into those that actually doesn't count. We'll exempt that. So it's like $13,000 or so, something along those lines, but it does get indexed, where we won't count that as an asset. So even though you've got this investment called a funeral bond, up to this amount, it's not counted. The other big one, though, is the fully prepaid funeral, where you've gone into a contract and, in effect, you've made all the decisions and paid all the costs beforehand. Now, that is fully exempted. So there's no top limit to that one, depending on how much you want to spend. If you want to have a solid gold casket, you can have a solid gold casket. But the things that it does is, yes, it's exempt as an asset for Services Australia perspective, so we don't count that. But more importantly, what you've actually done is you've made the life of all of your loved ones so much easier, because at a time that they don't want to think about anything, you've made all the decisions for them. So they don't have to decide the sorts of flowers that you might want or what music you want to play or where you want the service to be done, because you've made all those decisions beforehand. So not only is it potentially exempt from assessment by Services Australia, it's also just nice for the family. But you got to, again, get into the mindset, I've got to think these things through. Most of us think we're going to live forever, don't think those sorts of thoughts. Another one we have, which is a very special and very specific support service, if you like, it's called a Special Disability Trust. Now, this is for people that are looking after somebody that has a severe disability and they know that this person is not able to look after themselves. They can't make the decisions they need to make. And so these Special Disability Trusts, they are a family trust with a lot of very specific rules in place, so nowhere near the normal flexibility of a family trust, solely for the purpose of providing support for a person with a severe disability, providing accommodation and other bits and pieces. But normally, if you put money into a family trust, it's a gift, or the family trust is considered to be yours, and so they're still your assets. That's not how it works with a Special Disability Trust. So I know that this is for people that are it's very difficult and quite emotional, because considering we're having to look after potentially a person when we're gone again. But again, I'd say if you're thinking you've got a person in those circumstances and you want to look after them financially, give the Financial Information Service a call. Talk about these Special Disability Trusts. It's very complex. You're going to need solicitors. You're going to be talking to our solicitors, but it is a great service for a very particular group of people, and it's not going to count as an asset for Services Australia.
Yeah, and importantly, that conversation is free.
Yes, all free. And then we'll hand you over to our professionals that will also give you the extra guidance, because the wordings of these family trusts are very different to a normal family trust. So you've got to make sure all the wording is correct and the rules and responsibilities are correct. Otherwise, it won't meet the requirements and doesn't get the exemption.
Understood.
So you've got to make sure you meet the rules. And the other big one is superannuation for people who are under age pension age. Now, When we talk about super here, we're talking about the accumulation stage. So that's when you're putting the money in, you're not getting any of it out. You may not be able to get any of it out because you don't meet a release condition of the fund, and it's also paying tax on the interest that it's earning. So every dollar that it earns goes back into the fund. Every dollar that you put into it stays in the fund. Accumulation stage. When you are under age pension age, which is 67, we do not assess that as an asset for Services Australia for any payments that you're receiving. The moment you turn age pension age, it becomes an assessable asset. It's a deemed financial asset. We treat it the same as a bank account. We treat it the same as a share portfolio. If at any point you move it into an income stream, like a transition to retirement income stream, or you actually
Or an account-based pension.
move it into an account-based pension at 60 because you've retired at 60 and you can get it tax-free, you've made it an assessable asset for Services Australia because all income streams, they're assessable, but the super when you're under age pension age isn't. Now, from a financial planning perspective, they'll often talk about this, particularly when you've got a person who's age pension age, but their partner isn't. So if I'm 67, but my partner's only 63, then my partner's superannuation isn't going to count, whereas my superannuation will. So very often financial planners will talk about, let's move the money out of your super fund and let's put it into their super fund. And yes, there's nothing wrong with that. There's no law against it. The question that you have to ask, and the question you ask with any of these financial decisions is it actually going to be an advantage for me? Because there's no fixed rule. There's no one universal rule that means it always works for everybody. Sometimes it's absolutely the right thing to do. Sometimes it's absolutely not the right thing to do. So I had a gentleman who came and sat down with me one time, and he's over the pension cutoff point by about $250,000 worth of assets over, so too high. We talked about putting the money into super because the financial planner talked to him about it, and I showed to him, yes, if you put $300,000 as a after-tax contribution into your partner's superannuation fund, then yes, their super is exempt. Your assessable assets go down by $300,000. We would pay your pension. It would be about $30 a fortnight and a pension concession card. His initial thought was brilliant, and
Hold up.
that's right, because my responsibility, we're not making judgments one way or another. The Financial Information Service is not about trying to tell you what you should or shouldn't do. It's not about advice. It's about information. And part of that information is making sure people are aware of all the consequences of their decisions.
For example, the fact that there's tax applicable in the accumulation account of the spouse, whereas
Yes.
this money's tax-free.
So that's right. So I've moved it from a tax-free environment into a taxable environment is the first one. The other one, which was actually more significant for them, is that the partner was still working. So I've moved it from easily being able to access $300,000 to not being able to access any of the $300,000 because they don't meet a release condition of their super fund. And also I stopped getting my 5% drawdown. So there's $15,000 worth of tax-free income I'm no longer getting because I've now put it into my partner's accumulation fund. So from their perspective, it was a loss of $300,000 worth of capital plus paying tax and the loss of $15,000 worth of tax-free income for about $780 a fortnight in a pension concession card. And his question to me was, well, why would I do that? And we don't give an answer one way or another, but it's like, yes, that's the things that you need to think through. So every financial decision and every financial planner should be telling you this. There's pros and cons in every decision. Make sure you understand them. It's within the rules. It's perfectly fine. Just make sure you understand the implications of what you're getting yourself into.
I think that's a fair thing to say. Yeah, well, okay, well played. Let's talk about declaring super balances. Now, in the previous episode, we spoke about the fact that when it comes to your superannuation funds, or whether it's accumulation or pension, and indeed when it comes to your share portfolios and the like, they are valued automatically twice a year.
Yep.
And that's the 20th of March and 20th of September.
Shares are, most of our assessable managed funds are at the same time. Account-based pensions are not. They are still twice a year, but it's at a different date. So with account-based pensions, we update the balances of those with most market-linked account-based pensions around February and August. If you don't have a market-linked one, like a self-managed super fund, for example, that you've moved into drawdown phase, we'll actually ask you to tell us the balances again around February and August. But we'll do the updates of those. And it's the same sort of concept as with the shares that, yes, it might grow in the interim, but we happily automatically accept we'll do the rechecking on the February and August and leave it till then. That would change if you did something significant. Now, we talked about buying and selling shares. Well, you can't add to an account-based pension. You're not legally allowed to. But if you're going to completely restructure, then you move to a new fund, new balances, then that's a whole new ball game. You've got to tell Services Australia within 14 days that that's happened. again, we'll take care of it twice a year, but if there is a significant drawdown, same as in not drawdown, is if the market falls and if the balance of your funds fall because of market forces. Same with the super fund that we're updating on the 20th of March, 20th September. If there's a significant reduction in the market and you're getting a part rate pension, then it's to your advantage to take advantage of that, to let us know. We can recalculate. We will revalue again when August comes through or February comes through. If it's gone up again, we'll catch it then. Otherwise, you're getting that increased rate of payment. So you keep an eye on it to your advantage to let us know. So it's not something you have to do. And if you're getting a 4A pension, there'd be no. I mean, it's great to let us know, but it's not going to make any difference because, again, we're paying as much as we can. But if you're getting a part rate pension, then you'll notice, again, the day after, you'll start getting an increased rate in your next fortnightly payment. It'll be a few days at the old rate when you had the bigger balance and a few days at the new rate with a lower balance, and then the one after that will be always at that new lower balance.
Thanks for watching this episode of the podcast. A common question that we get at Rask is, how do I need to be prepared if I want to see a financial advisor? There's a few things that stand out that may really help you if you want to get the best from an advisory relationship. The first is to come prepared. It's really valuable if you can arrive at that meeting with a good sense as to what you want to achieve from an advisory relationship. Now, there's lots of different financial advisors out there that operate very differently. And if you don't have a good sense as to what you want to achieve, it can be kind of easy to get pulled into their advice philosophy and their approach. It can be hard to define what is the best advice relationship for me. So whether it's you or you and your partner having a good conversation to say, what do we actually want to get out of this? That will really, really help you to know that you're in the right place when you sit down with your advisor. The second one is to be open-minded. You may very well work out that there is one or two specific things that we're looking to address with our financial life. But a really good financial advisor is going to be thorough. They're not just going to look at those things. They're going to be as exhaustive as they can be about your entire financial life and make sure that everything is lined up and set up the way that it should be. So when you go into that process, please be open-minded that the highest value that you might get is not necessarily solving those one or two acute things that you wanted. The last thing is to be curious. If you are watching this podcast, it's probably because you are watching or listening. It's probably because you want to learn more about your finances. You want to level up when it comes to your education. And if you're going to meet with a financial advisor, it may be your first opportunity to transition that general knowledge that you've developed about your finances into your own situation and how it applies to you. So be curious. It makes sense for you to try to understand as well as possible, how do all these things work for me? Because at the end of the day, it's your financial journey and it's your money, and all of the advice should be helping to serve your unique situation. Now, if you want to learn more about how to get the most from your advisory relationship, you can either scan here, and that will take you to a guide that gives you a heap more information. Alternatively, if you scroll down below, there is a link to a Northeast Wealth page that we put together not too long ago, and that similarly outlines the key things that you should be doing in order to get the very most from the relationship. Thanks again for watching this episode of the podcast. I'm James O'Reilly from Northeast Wealth. We hope you enjoy it. That's a fair thing to say. Yeah, well, okay, well played. Let's talk about declaring super balances. Now, in the previous episode, we spoke about the fact that when it comes to your superannuation funds, or whether it's accumulation or pension, and indeed when it comes to your share portfolios and the like, they are valued automatically twice a year.
Yep.
And that's the 20th of March and 20th of September.
Shares are, most of our assessable managed funds are at the same time. Account-based pensions are not. They are still twice a year, but it's at a different date. So with account-based pensions, we update the balances of those for most market-linked account-based pensions around February and August. If you don't have a market-linked one, like a self-managed super fund, for example, that you've moved into drawdown phase, we'll actually ask you to tell us the balances again around February and August. But we'll do the updates of those. And it's the same sort of concept as with the shares, that yes, it might grow in the interim, but we happily automatically accept. We'll do the rechecking on the February and August and leave it till then. That would change if you did something significant. Now, we talked about buying and selling shares. Well, you can't add to an account-based pension. You're not legally allowed to. But if you're going to completely restructure, then you move to a new fund, new balances, then that's a whole new ball game. You've got to tell Services Australia within 14 days that that's happened. Again, we'll take care of it twice a year, but if there is a significant drawdown, same as in not drawdown, is if the market falls and if the balance of your funds fall because of market forces. Same with the super fund that we're updating on the 20th of March, 20th September. If there's a significant reduction in the market and you're getting a part rate pension, then it's to your advantage to take advantage of that, to let us know. We can recalculate. We will revalue again when August comes through or February comes through. If it's gone up again, we'll catch it then. Otherwise, you're getting that increased rate of payment. So you keep an eye on it to your advantage to let us know. So it's not something you have to do. And if you're getting a full rate pension, there'd be no. I mean, it's great to let us know, but it's not going to make any difference because, again, we're paying as much as we can. But if you're getting a part rate pension, then you'll notice, again, the day after, you'll start getting an increased rate in your next fortnightly payment. It'll be a few days at the old rate when you had the bigger balance and a few days at the new rate with a lower balance, and then the one after that will be always at that new lower balance.
So let's practically talk about an event that happened not too long ago. We had Trump, in all of his wisdom, decide that it was time for Liberation Day, and he announced tariffs, of course, all over the world. That was done on April the 2nd, and the market behaved exactly the way any second-year economist could have predicted the market would behave, except not Donald Trump and his administration. That was a surprise for them. We saw this significant fall in markets, which washed a huge amount of money off, amongst other things, pension balances. And I'm thinking about some of our members that had 10% falls in their pension balances over that time, from April the 2nd to April the 9th, that quickly. Now, during that time, for those eligible for part pension, that did present an opportunity to update Centrelink values, which you could do by logging in and saying, well, my super balance was arbitrarily $400,000 and it's now $350,000.
Here's my statement. Here's the evidence that it's there.
Correct. And immediately those individuals would get an uptick in their entitlement. Now, importantly, even though there was this strong V-like recovery and we're back out the other side, those individuals, they're not required to notify Centrelink that my super balance has gone up because of this automated system. So in August, you're going to find out. Practically, that individual's experience is that they would receive higher pension from April the 9th when they notify, and then when it rolls around to August, that superannuation balance or that pension balance is going to be revalued, probably in real terms back to where it was before. And then when that does happen, they're going to go back to the old rate of pension. But there was a window of, say, 3-4 months whereby they were eligible for more pension. So that I think you have to play this one finally, in the sense that I'm sure Centrelink wouldn't enjoy people getting in touch saying, oh, it's $4,000 lower today, so can I quickly do something?
Well, again, that's where it's the online is easier because you're not getting in contact, in effect. And it's a small change. Here's the evidence. Here's a statement, then and done. And with small changes, quite often the system will accept that and say, all right, we'll accept that change is coming through. We've got the evidence. Thanks very much. So it's something that you can do at home, as I say often. In your gym jams, having a Tim Tam while you're doing your updates of your online accounts through your MyGo account linked to your Centrelink record. So it doesn't necessarily involve a lot of effort in actually to do those updates and scan the documents and send them through. I mean, it's the sort of thing that you can be able to do at home.
But I suppose you just have to be aware, though, because there's the inverse of this, right? You could suddenly have whether it has anything to do with Liberation Day or it's just a normal market period, where you roll through February or August and suddenly your entitlement goes down perhaps quite meaningfully by $20 or $30 or even $50 a fortnight because there's been this significant increase in your pension balance. If that is happening to you, by the way, then I assure you that's not a bad thing. Like contextually, you would it's sort of like you don't avoid income to avoid income tax. You know, you don't avoid gains in your portfolio to ensure that you get the maximum age pension, but that is just a byproduct of what is otherwise a very fair system.
Yeah, if we're just on that, if we're going back way back to the global financial crisis, when there was a big panic about why am I even investing in anything to do with shares, had a gentleman came to me, he had an account-based pension, and he said, I've got this dodgy account. And again, our role is just to explain finances, and this is how market forces work, and the fact that it's down now means that it's going to go up again. It doesn't mean that it's a permanent change. So he came and told me how his account-based pension was horrendous because he's just lost $150,000, and it was $450,000 is now $300,000. I said, okay, so tell me about the fund. And he'd owned it for like 10 years, and he started at $250,000, And so, okay, let's just back that up. So it started at 250. You've been getting a regular income from it for 10 years. It grew to 450. It's now still $50,000 more than when you started, and you've been taking the income all along. So if I told you 10 years ago, I can give you a fund that pays you an income all the way through, and you still get an extra $50,000, you're going to tell me that's a bad product as well as that income. So it's, yes, there's that idea that, oh my goodness, this is not doing very, very well, but let's do perspective. How have we actually gone over the history of it and letting market forces do what market forces do? And our responsibility, again, the Financial Information Service, is just explaining this is what market forces do. These falls happen, and then look at the history of them. Then they grow and they fall. So don't be surprised when they happen. Every good financial planner will be taking into account these falls are going to happen. They've got a strategy that takes into account these falls are going to happen. So there's no reason to just change everything when that actually does occur. So yes, long conversations about doing that sort of thing with people.
I will say I find that I understand why it happens. It's a very interesting cognitive bias that all humans have, that we always think that our, like, let's say take something volatile like shares. We always think that the fair value of shares is the highest they've ever been. So you've got a 5-year trading window holding ABC share fund, and the fund you bought it at $30, it went up to 77, and it's now down at 40.
Yep.
And you speak to people about it, and you say, well, actually, based on the growth you've had, it's not too bad over that time frame. And they say, yeah, but no, I think I might hold on to get back to back to where it deserves to be, which is $77. Many times I've had that conversation with people to say, if it's just as arbitrary as picking the maximum, why don't I pick the maximum? Why don't I pick the minimum as fair value? Why are you choosing the highest number possible? It's very fascinating that humans do that. Obviously, it's just loss aversion. We just don't want to feel like we've lost money. But it is interesting that people do it.
For sure. Now, the other thing, and interesting on shares, because the other thing is that people that are really close to the assets limits, if you're very close to the asset limits and you've got quite a volatile portfolio, you might not want to actually apply for a pension at that point, even if you're potentially eligible, because I'm eligible on the 1st of July, but I'm not eligible on the 20th of September when the shares are revalued. And then I become eligible again on the 5th of February to then potentially not become eligible again when we revalue on the 20th of March. And it's the idea of how much effort for how much benefit. If I got it. But the good news is that once I've been granted a pension in the first place, getting back on it again is actually much easier. So it's not such a trawl to have to go through all the paperwork again. But that idea that if I'm so close, because I had some customers they're just getting under, like that gentleman that we talked about beforehand with this, the putting the super into his partner's fund to just get under. Now, if you have 10% growth in the next 2 years, well, then you're out again, all that effort, and you're out again in 6 months' time. What was all the effort for? So maybe you want to have enough breathing space to allow for a bit of market volatility. So you just don't have to go through the application lost it, reclaim process.
Yeah, a long time ago, I met with someone who was exactly on that line, and he and his wife would try to align all of their medical expenses to be when they were the window when they were eligible and had a healthcare card, and then markets would do what they do, and then markets would rise, and we didn't have any money, and then we'd spend some money on a holiday, and then we'd be marginally eligible, and so that sounds like a really chaotic way to live your life.
Yeah, but that actually quite nicely brings us into, because talking about concession cards, it brings us into the other one that exists, because when people think about pensions, they'll often think about your blue pensioner concession card and do in some ways whatever they can to get one. And yes, if you get a pension, you get a pensioner concession card. It's you've got to get a pension to get one. It's for all the pensions. So age pension, disability support pension, carer payment, you all get your pensioner concession card. If you're getting the full rate or only getting a little bit, you still get the same pensioner concession card. Helps you with your medical costs, reduces the prescriptions to $7 prescriptions instead of the $31 or so prescriptions. You get to your Medicare safety limits faster and your pharmaceutical benefit limits faster. So definitely makes a difference on the cost of medicines and doctor's visits. Bulk billing potentially, but that's really up to the doctors to decide if they're going to bulk bill or not. That's not something that we have any power of. But a lot of the benefits of those pensioner concession cards actually don't come through the federal government. They actually come through your state government or your local council. And they're different from state to state and council to council. So whenever anybody tells you that a pensioner concession card is worth this amount of money, you really ask questions about that, because how can that possibly be a figure if Queensland provides different benefits to New South Wales, to Tasmania and Victoria, etc. So first thing I recommend is if you got your pensioner concession card, you got a pension, you get your card, go to your local government and your state government websites to see what concessional benefits you get. If you're not eligible for a pension, there is another concession card that's out there for people that are over age pension age. It's called the Commonwealth Seniors Health Card, and this would have resolved that person's issue. Commonwealth Seniors Health Card, importantly, is not assets tested. So if I don't have an eligibility for the age pension because my assets are too high, that makes no difference for the Commonwealth Seniors Health Card. And not only is it not assets tested, the income test for the Commonwealth Seniors Health Card is actually much higher than the income test for the age pension. So if I'm a single person, the income test for the Commonwealth Seniors Health Card is $99,025 a year, which is like 30 grand higher than the age pension. And for a member of a couple, it's $158,440 a year combined, so significantly higher. And the card provides the same medical benefits as the pensioner concession card. So the $7 prescriptions, the access to the lower pharmaceutical benefits limits, and the lower Medicare benefit limits. So you get the cheaper prescriptions, again, potential bulk billing, but again, it's up to the doctors. So if you don't have a pension eligibility, self-funded retiree, doesn't mean there isn't concessional support out there for you, because the Commonwealth Seniors Health Card is out there for you as well. If you are under those limits and you're listening today, then go to our website, servicesaustralia.gov.au, look for the Commonwealth Seniors Health Card. The best way to apply, we've already talked about that MyGov account linked to your Centrelink record. If you haven't done that already, most of us actually have a MyGov account because we created one for the pandemic and it was our proof of vaccinations and stuff. Link that to your Centrelink record. If you don't know how to do that, go to the MyGov website, which is my.gov.au, so my.gov.au. Tells you how to link them up, tells you how to lodge an application and go for it to get that concessional support.
Let's move across momentarily to gifting.
Sure.
Now, in a previous episode, we spoke about gifting and we debunked the idea that you can ship $500,000 to one of your children or your best mate or whoever in order to suddenly become eligible for age pension. And we know you can't do that because, in short, there are what are we called gifting rules, and there are limits.
Yep.
And that limit, to keep it simple, let's say it's $10,000 a year. As we know, $30,000 over a rolling 5-year period. But for all intents and purposes, when someone gives $500,000 away, realistically, the vast majority of that action is just completely redundant.
Yes.
Now, there are a few little things that you can do with gifting in order to get a better outcome, though. The first one that stands out to me, you pointed out, of course, that it is $10,000 per financial year. And what that means is that you might be a partial age pension recipient with a daughter that has a wedding, for instance, and it was always, whether it was expected or you've made the decision that we'd like to contribute toward our daughter's wedding. If that contribution was $20,000, you'd be far better positioned and you'd get a better age pension entitlement by making payment 1 in one financial year, I say, even if it's the 30th of June, and payment 2 on the 1st of July.
That's a very common conversation. When are we timing it and when are we going to be doing it and breaking it over 2 financial years?
Yeah.
Yes. So if I give away $30,000, we'll use $30,000 of the lump sum. So I give away $30,000 of the lump sum. We will ignore the 10. We'll add the other $20,000 back, and that $20,000 stays on your record for 5 years. It doesn't get discounted the next year by 10 or the year after. You're able to give away another $10,000 the next financial year separate to that, but the $20,000 will stay. If I'm thinking ahead and know these sorts of things are happening, then I give away $10,000 on the 30th of June, $10,000 on the 1st of July, $10,000 on the next 1st of July. Then you're meeting those limits. We'll acknowledge that money is gone, and we'll say over that, what is in effect 2 years and 1 day period, you don't have $30,000 worth of assets. We've acknowledged they're all not counted any longer. There would be no carryover for a 5-year period afterwards.
Mm-hmm. I think so. In fact, I'm not going to get into the numbers, but it works out to be about $500 a year better off by doing it that way.
Well, for $3 for every, if your assets tested,
yep,
which is important. If your income tested, it's a very different story because it's deemed interest, which is a much lower proportion. If your assets tested for every $1,000 of assets you don't have, the pension goes up by $3 a fortnight. So for $10,000, that's $30 a fortnight. Yep. So it's $780 per annum. Mm. So yeah, it does increase the pension rate. And you did that over 3 years. That'd be what, $2,000
Yeah, you're right. I was doing 260 times 2, but it's more. It's 760 times 2. So you're 1520 a year. Yeah, it's you.
No,
1520 over the course of that period.
Yeah, not each.
Beg your pardon.
Because it's and that is the one thing important to say about gifting, which we didn't actually say. If I'm a single person, it's $10,000. If I'm a member of a couple, it's $10,000. It's not $10,000 each. It's $10,000 in total. Yep.
Very good. Now, there's one other scenario that it came up quite recently for one of our members, which is around the 5-year rule associated with gifting. 5 years makes sense. You can't. It seems impractical to look back over the last 50 years and say, what have you gifted anyone? And the 5-year rule is really designed to make sure that people don't use gifting to circumvent the intent of the age pension.
Yep.
And the reason that's material is because you might have a scenario. Let's indulge this hypothetically, if I may, because it was real. You've got a 61-year-old couple who, based on our modelling, are very likely to be eligible for some age pension. Not a great deal, truth be told, but part age pension. We've gone through their plans and priorities and talked about that in detail. We've modelled where they're likely to be, and we're going to be able to meet their retirement needs. So happy days, and quite comfortably. They don't spend a huge amount of money, and they don't want for much. Now, as part of that, one of their goals was we really want to help our son with his first home purchase. He's currently at uni. There's a little while to go until he'll need it. But when the time comes, in our mind's eye, we would be giving our son 50 or 100 grand as that real bump to say you can get into the housing market sooner. Now, as part of that, it can circumstantially be better, and there's a lot to take in here because it depends on a whole range of things, but it can circumstantially be better to give that money away earlier, because if you get to age 67 and your assets are such that you qualify for a part age pension, well, one of the questions that Centrelink is going to ask, of course, is have you given away any money in the last 5 years? And if the answer is, if it's, well, I gave away, for example, $100,000, but I did that 5 years and a day ago, that's irrelevant. We're focused only on the last 5 years. So there are some more unusual cases where if you can foresee that, practically, I'm definitely going to be giving money to my kids, whether that's, maybe my children have different standards around their weddings and different standards around how much I've given other children or what else I've contributed to other kids in the past. And I know that there's going to be meaningful amounts, not 5, not 10, not 15,000, 50, 100, 200,000. Often the timing of that can be quite important. Let's move to one more, please, in terms of tips, and that's the work bonus.
Sure.
I think it surprises me how few Australians, and in particular age pension recipients, properly understand the work bonus. And there's this view of saying, well, I'm now eligible for age pension, whether it's full or part, but I might do some volunteering, for example, because I don't want to earn an income because that would affect my age pension. Now, firstly, we hook back to that same concept of you don't avoid income to avoid income tax. Similarly, you don't really, or you shouldn't really avoid income to protect your age pension. But in practical terms, if you're on a part pension that's income tested, it can really have a material effect and significantly reduce your actual earnings if you go over the work bonus. Can we speak momentarily about that work bonus and what that means for people?
Yeah, so you're quite right. There are people that are worried that if I earn any dollar, my pension's going to go down, and that's a bad thing. But the way the income test works, certainly if you're on a lower income with the benefit of the Senior Australian and Pensioner Tax Offset, you can earn, for a single person, earn somewhere in the vicinity of $30,000 of combined sources of income, not paying any tax and still getting quite a significant amount of age pension with that as well as part of the $30,000. So when we talked about the age pension income test beforehand, we said that you can earn up to a single person up to $65,000 or so before the pension stops. If some of that income is coming from wages and salaries or eligible self-employment, then on top of our income-free area, which is $218 a fortnight, there's $300 a fortnight that you can earn from income from wages and salaries. So the income-free area is the amount of money that you can earn from any source before the pension's reduced. For a single person, $218 a fortnight. The work bonus is the fact that we will actually ignore the first $300 a fortnight from wages that you are earning before there's any impact on the pension. So in effect, $300 of that goes into your pocket with no impact on the pension eligibility at all. And it's only when you earn over $300 in the fortnight then there is a potential reduction in your rate. But even that's not guaranteed because of a thing called the work bonus balance. Now, if I lodge an application for the age pension tomorrow, I will start with a work bonus balance of $4,000. You kick off with one with the $4,000. The work bonus balance is sort of like an income offset. It's not money that I can access, but it's money that I can earn from wages or that eligible self-employment that I will use up that work bonus balance. And it's only when that work bonus balance is fully used up that my pension rate actually starts to be affected. So every fortnight that you don't work, if you're on an age pension, every fortnight you don't work or you work and earn less than $300, you're adding to your work bonus balance until it reaches a maximum of $11,800. Then it's capped. That's where it stays. If you choose to start work and you've got a maximum work bonus balance of $11,800, what we do is we first of all take off the $300 a fortnight from wages. We do that automatically. Any excess then reduces your work bonus balance, and it's only when it reduces down to zero that the pension is actually affected by the income test. And that could be months. And you could be actually worrying because I'm reporting this income because you've got to tell us every fortnight. So you're reporting your income and you're noticing that your pension hasn't changed. So, well, I'm telling you all about these wages, but I'm still getting the same rate of pension. That's fine. That's actually the system working the way the system is supposed to work. And the nice thing about it is it's all automatic. So you don't have to do any maths. We take care of it for you. So we'll give an example because there's all theoretical, give you numbers. So got a guy named Ray. He applied for the pension. He stopped work and for 6 months or so he wasn't working and he's grown his work bonus balance to $6,000. He then starts a casual job and he's now earning $750 a fortnight. So the first thing we do, he tells us about the income. That's great. We take off the $300 a fortnight, which happens automatically. So his $750 becomes $450. We then take the $450 of excess income and reduce that $6,000 work bonus balance by $450. So it becomes $5,550. The work bonus balance has covered all of his excess wages, which means none of the $750 that he's earned actually becomes assessable. So he's got the same rate of pension he was getting before he started work, and he's got the $750 in his pocket without any impact. And if you're going on that rate at $450 or so excess, it would actually take, what are we talking about, 11 fortnights?
Yeah.
So almost half a year before the work bonus is fully used up and he actually starts to see a change in the rate of pension. Now, a lot of retirees might only do short-term work, doing the Santa job over it, but I like HSC marking is quite common, and we just recently had an election, so maybe I worked at the election for a couple of days. Because that's the only work that I've done for most of the year, all of that income is absorbed by my work bonus balance. It started at $11,800, it became maybe $9,300. I told them I stopped work again, and it starts growing up again till it gets back to the $11,800 mark. And all of that wage for the 3 or 4 days that I worked, in my pocket, no impact on the pension whatsoever. Mm-hmm. So it's about the wage that I'm earning may have much less of an impact on my fortnightly rate of payment than I thought.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. And as a reminder, we've spoken about it in the previous episode, but once again, you can proactively reach out to the Financial Information Service and you can get in touch with them to ask, hey, I'm looking at earning an income that's going to be X dollars. What does that actually mean for me? Yes. What does that mean? How long will it be? And then that I run through work bonus balance. And then eventually when that's depleted, what would be that date? Then how would my pension change? So there's a tremendous amount of proactive information you can get that is very specifically your information, not approximations, very specifically yours. So working can be a wonderful way of remaining active, and paid employment also can, I think, can give people, not always, but in a lot of cases, a lot more purpose than unpaid employment, depending on the work itself.
And it's also important to say that this is all completely voluntary. So if you working is because you want to work. There's nothing in the pension, the age pension, that says you have to. It's entirely up to you to choose if that's something you want to do. So it's all about, I retire. And it's this, again, the mental place. I was working full-time until Tuesday a month ago, and then I stopped working. And now I really don't know what to do with myself. So for activity, for social, for everything, I want to be re-engaged. Absolutely, you're within your right to do that, and the work bonus may mean that it's not going to have as big an impact as you thought. Yep. So, absolutely go for work.
I'd like to move across, please, to the traps. Sure. Now, we have had so much great stuff in this podcast that we're starting to stretch out the time here. So I'll do my best to keep this one as sharp as I can. One of the obvious traps that stands out to me is around valuing home contents. Would you mind speaking to this, please? Sure.
So when you're looking at pension eligibility, you're going to show us your bank statements, you're going to show us your super fund balances. one of the things that you're going to give us an estimate of is your household contents and personal effects. And I guess the trap or the trick here is that we're actually after garage sale value for this one. So we're not after new for old or insurance value, but what you would legitimately get. If you put your life on the lawn and tried to sell it, what would you legitimately get? Your entire CD collection. Who listens to CDs anymore? It's like $20. The 1974 Mission Brown Wickerwork couch, you're lucky to get $50 for it. That's the sort of valuation that I had. And I had one gentleman. It was the most beautiful and ultimately pointless document. He actually came to me and he had 4 pages where he had actually valued everything individually. And so that's great. So we reckon $5,000, $6,000, $10,000. What do you reckon? Oh, about 10. Right, done. Thanks. That's it. Mm-hmm. So we're not going to be sending people to your house to check that the values are correct.
Yeah.
And in fact, often if you go a high value, we may get in contact with you and say, are you sure that that's right? Mm-hmm. Because I have had a customer who actually wasn't eligible for a pension because her estimated value of her home contents was significantly too high. And when we had a chat with her about, so is this what you would really get in a garage? I said, oh, no, I'm getting anywhere near that. So what will the new value be? She came back with a new value. We can grant the pension the next day. It's just trying to get an accurate valuation. The car's the same. What's the second hand? If I was going to sell this car in this condition on the market at the moment, what would I get for it? That's the value that we're after. Linked to that is that there's no depreciation concept with us. So if you put a value of the car and you said 5 years ago that my car was worth $30,000 and you look now, it'll still be valued at $30,000. We don't devalue it. We don't depreciate the value of it. So if you think it's gone down in value, again, it's an easy thing to do online, but it's up to you to tell us that the prices have fallen. So just keep that in mind. Again, it's the issue of not even that I'm not getting the pension, but I'm getting less pension based on a theoretical construct, which isn't based on the reality of my life. So I've estimated my home contents $50,000. If I'm assets tested, again, I'm missing out on payments based on what is not really there. Yeah. Mind you, you're saying that if you've got a Grange Hermitage in the cupboard and you've got a Picasso on the wall, then yes, 50,000 would be an underestimate. It'd be much more than that. But if you're just an average person with average stuff, then you haven't got anywhere near things of that value, and people aren't going to buy or spend a lot of money on your old TV.
Yeah. And on that note, when it comes to cars in particular, there's a website that can be really valuable, which is redbook.com.au, and that can give a really good and realistic assessment of what your car is worth, and also a good thing to be able to demonstrate at any point to say, well, here's where the numbers came from. It wasn't pie in the sky. It was Redbook specifically told me that this version was worth this.
Yep.
What about the idea of not declaring changes? We know that if you're, from the previous episode we did, we know that if you have a responsibility to notify Centrelink of a change within 14 days. And as we discussed, that's not because investment markets moved your share portfolio. We know that that's automatically done. But the change might be in the form of, for example, I've inherited some assets, or I was personally gifted some money, or I won some money in my local bingo, like that's meaningful enough for you to disclose.
For sure.
I mean, the consequences of not declaring can be twofold. Number one, if you fail to declare as things are improving, then eventually it will get bad for you. And then number two is that as your assets are depleting, maybe you go on that big family holiday. Well, you've spent that money, and then similarly, there's value in declaring. Can you speak to that? Yeah.
So the requirement is to tell us within 14 days, and we'll use an inheritance as a great example. So the first thing very quickly about an inheritance, it's not your money till it's actually your money, if you want to put it that way. So if you know you're going to receive money from an inheritance, but it's still being held by the executor of the will, so it's still intestate, waiting to be paid, there's nothing to declare because it's not your money. The only time that I'll put a caveat on that one is that if you are really delaying that because you want to hold off to get more pension, there is a period of time when we're actually going to start asking questions about why you haven't got your inheritance yet. But apart from that, it's only yours when it's actually been physically put into your bank account or your name been put on the title deeds. Now, you've got to tell us within 14 days that that's happened. If you don't tell us within 14 days and we've been paying you money that you actually aren't entitled to because you got more assets than we thought, then we're going to ask for that money back. Now, that's no more significance than saying, oh, look, we paid you an extra $100 a fortnight than we should have. We've done it for 6 months. Can you please pay us that $100 a fortnight back? They're not even charging interest on it. It's not a statement of intent or anything. It's just you got money, you shouldn't have done that. So as long as there's no intention to deliberately defraud the agency, then we'll just ask for the money back. Now, if the opposite occurs and your circumstances, you paid money to do renovations on the home, and so that money's gone. You didn't tell us within 14 days. Your rate of payment may have been higher, but because you didn't tell us within 14 days, we aren't actually going to pay you the difference. So you've just missed out on increased rate of pension until you did finally get onto us and let us know. So the 14-day window is the most important thing. And again, if you are online, using online services is the best way. If you have online capacity, but you're just not comfortable, or you've got the smartphone, you've got the tablet, but you're just not comfortable using them, you can actually make an appointment with Services Australia, your local office, and spend 15 minutes, 30 minutes, or 45 minutes being coached and taught with your phone, how to use MyGov and how to access it properly. So if it's just, I've got the ability, but I'm just not comfortable, go into your local office or ring us up on your normal payment line, make an appointment to get taught how to do it, because we do like 10 million transactions a week. 9 million of those are online. So doing things online is just simply simpler, easier, faster, and much more comfortable. So yeah, do it that way.
The last one I've got here is around relationship status. That can be a real trap for some people. Can you speak to how a change in relationship status can have an impact on age pensions?
Yeah, well, the first thing is you move from being whether you're a single person to become a member of a couple, or a member of a couple to become a single person. And the rate of payment itself is very different from one to the other. The rate of single pension is about $1,140 a fortnight. For a member of a couple, it's $866 a fortnight. So there's a big difference between those two figures. So if you become a single person, then we're going to be looking at what's a single person's rate. Member of a couple, now combined income and assets, and now paid at the couple rate. So it's a significant change in the pension rate, which means we need to know exactly what's going on with that one. Now, sometimes it's not easy. And we're not even talking about really horrendous. Services Australia sees people that are sometimes going through the worst stages of life, and that's at any age. And there's the whole very messy separations on that side of things. But sometimes you just can't financially move out, for example. And so you're in the same house, but you know you're not a member of a couple, but you're still living in the same house. You still can be a single person if you're living under the same roof with another person, but we're not just going to take your word for that one. So there's going to be a lot of investigation to work out what your circumstances are, to confirm you are actually a single person. People will come to me often and say, well, I'm single because our finances are separate. So I can point to a numerous number of couples who don't share their finances, but they're definitely couples. So we don't live in the same bedroom. I can point to a number of couples that don't live in the same bedroom. That doesn't make them single. Mm. So it's a whole range of different features that we look at in working out, are you actually single or not? And so don't be surprised if we're going to ask you quite a few questions to actually find out the true nature of the relationship and what's going on. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. Justin, I'm so grateful for all the detail that you've given here. It is a genuine pleasure asking you questions because I can just ask them and sit back and get informed. So, mate, thank you so much for coming down from Sydney today to educate as many of our Australian Retirement Podcast listeners as possible. And we would, in the future, we'd love to have you on the show again.
Pleasure.
Now, also, if you have not had your magical question asked today or answered today, then please, by all means, jump onto the chat. There's the question link down below in the show notes, so you can click on that and ask anything that you want. And we'll do our best to make sure that we keep all that up to date. But again, Justin, just a pleasure to have you here today, and thank you very much.
Lots of fun. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for watching this episode of the podcast. If you want to hear more from us, you can get daily videos and podcasts on Rask's YouTube channel. Or if you want to enroll in a free course on investing, property, business, money, you name it, you can join over 34,000 other students and enroll in a free course on the Rask website. Simply head to www.rask.com.au and follow the prompts. Thanks for watching this Rask podcast.